Looking at a live picture, and it is the law tonight. The speed limit is 65 miles per hour on many of Oklahoma's highways.
It's an annual ritual, the last-minute rush to get your taxes in on time. We'll have a live report from Tulsa's downtown post office.
The rallying cry is again heard in Oklahoma City. No more budget cuts to schools.
And they may be imprisoned, but their talents know no boundaries. Those stories, Gary's weather outlook, and Al has baseball's first no-hitter of the season. Next.
You're watching KJRH, TV2, Tulsa. Live from KJRH in Tulsa, this is News Center 2 Nightcast with Gary Weber, Beth Ringel, meteorologist Gary Shore, and sports director Al Jerkins.
Since 1974, this has been one of the most controversial signs on Oklahoma's and the nation's landscape. Now it's coming down on some highways. Good evening, everyone. It was first enacted as a fuel-saving measure during the energy crisis.
But the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit was also seen as a life-saving measure. In recent years, though, many states complained that enforcing the speed limit was costly and time-consuming. Oklahoma was one of those states. And today, Governor Bellman signed into law the bill that would increase the speed limit on many state highways to 65. These are the highways that the speed limit has been raised: Interstate 35, I-40, and I-44. But tomorrow, the State Turnpike Authority will decide on raising the speed limit on these highways: the Cimarron Turnpike, the Muskogee Turnpike, and the Indian Nations Turnpike. Tonight, we spoke to some motorists who were on their way from Tulsa to Oklahoma City and asked them what they thought of the change.
It's stayed about the same for me, really. I'm kind of guilty, kind of pushing the limit probably a little bit, but I normally try to drive around 60, 65 anyway.
I think a lot of people will probably not go over the speed limit because 65 is a nice, comfortable speed for me as far as my driving is concerned.
I suspect you will. Being able to go a little faster, I've heard some comments that some of the people say, well, now we can drive 74 instead of 64.
Governor Bellman was presented with a measure this afternoon and signed it shortly afterward. And of course, Governor Bellman has always been concerned about raising the speed limit in that it might result in an increase in traffic deaths.
Of course, Beth, now that is a question. Is it going to result in more traffic fatalities? In 1974, federal law reduced speed limits across the country from 70 to 55 miles an hour. The legislation was prompted by the Arab oil embargo and was designed to save gasoline. It did that. And traffic deaths also dropped as a result of the lower speeds. Joining us now live at the Turner Turnpike gate is Lieutenant Ken Perry of the Oklahoma Highway Patrol. First of all, Lieutenant Perry, is today's action going to make your job more difficult?
Jerry, I don't think our job will be more difficult. It should stay about the same.
Did you, as an individual and a highway patrol trooper, did you oppose in any way the speed going up?
Could you repeat that question? There's a truck going by. I couldn't understand.
I understand. Lieutenant, did you oppose the speed limit at all, knowing about the death thing?
Well, of course, anytime the speed increases, your severity of your accidents, the personal injuries are greater, property damage is greater. We like the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, but we're going to enforce whatever the state legislature puts into law.
Something we need to go over tonight, when you and I talked earlier this evening, people need to understand they can't go through Tulsa or Oklahoma City or Lawton at 65 miles an hour. That's for rural interstates.
Yes, sir. The law as enacted today is strictly the rural interstate. There's nowhere in Tulsa County that the interstate system will be 65. It'll remain at 55 or 50 where it's posted. The only roads that are affected are Interstate 35 and Interstate 40 at this time.
Lieutenant, we appreciate you taking the time tonight. I know it's going to be a busy evening for you, and good luck to you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Some opponents of the speed limit, of the new speed limit, say it could put some federal highway funds in jeopardy. Now, while the speed limit is changing, there is no change in the fact that today is April the 15th, and we know what that means.
That means your tax returns are due. The Internal Revenue Service is forecasting over 100 million returns to be filed this year. The IRS is also expecting the usual last-minute crunch, a crunch that Tulsa postal workers are experiencing this evening. Nightcast reporter Brad Rogers is standing by live at the post office. Well, Brad, how do things look out there?
Well, Beth, it's been busy. Right now, traffic is backed up for 2, maybe 3 blocks, no matter where you look around the post office. People are filing in here, making sure that their tax returns have that April 15th stamp on it. Of course, a lot of these people wanted to wait until the last minute. They wanted to hang on to their money as long as possible before giving it up to Uncle Sam. We all know that death and taxes are inevitable, but I guess the natural tendency is to put off both as long as possible. These are some of the many Tulsa taxpayers who today were caught up in the last-minute tax rush. But here in Bartlett Square, there were plenty of people rushing to their aid. For the third year running, IRS employees, CPAs, and volunteer income tax assisters were on hand to lend a hand in filling out returns.
Like anything else, after you do them a few times, why, it becomes easy.
The CPAs were dressed in shorts to help race tax forms to the proper places. Sean Slavin said he got a real workout. Have you been doing a lot of running?
Quite a bit.
With all this help, there's not much excuse in filing late. However, there were plenty of excuses for waiting until the last possible moment.
I just procrastinated on my state, and then I lost my forms.
Some did say that last year's big tax overhaul confused them. They said there was nothing easy about preparing their taxes. But the majority just put it off, the general consensus being that taxes are for the birds.
Well, probably I could have done it myself if I worked at it, so I came down here because it is free and it's here.
And all these last-minute returns have Tulsa postal workers scrambling tonight. But soon, this flood of paperwork will be on the doorstep of the Internal Revenue Service. And IRS officials say the big end-of-the-season push means a wait of 6 to 10 weeks in processing tax returns. Now you have less than 2 hours to get on down here to the post office with your tax returns. And postal officials tell me that anyone in line by midnight will have their tax returns filed on April 15th. Beth?
Got less than 2 hours. Thank you, Brad. Mothers from 40 communities across the state rallied on the steps of the state capitol today. They united to protest any cuts in education. Lawmakers have threatened 15% cuts. They're trying to make up a $248 million budget shortfall. But today, Governor Henry Bellman reassured the mothers there'd be no cuts in education funds. He said he could almost guarantee enough funds for school programs.
You know, it's hard to imagine a life without freedom, but that's the way it is for about 10,000 Oklahoma residents. They've broken the law, and now they're serving time in the state prison system. News Center 2's Bruce Dunbar reports that some have found a unique way to cope with the hard reality of prison life.
It's a monochromatic life behind bars, gray as prison pallor. Simple arithmetic is a universal language. Inmates count the years, guards count the inmates, and the world is limited to a few well-defined acres.
These are wings, but they don't show the white as intense as down in there. Bring these out right across here.
A few inmates have found a way to add color to their lives with a stroke of a paintbrush. They're members of George Roberts' art class. Roberts began painting after a string of bank robberies landed him in prison 21 years ago.
I want them to learn the appreciation of the things that we're trying to paint, of all the things that nature provides for them.
In pursuit of that, some students have made an unexpected discovery.
I found out something in my life that I don't know was there.
What Demetrio Rodriguez learned was he has a unique talent for painting, a means of self-expression more effective than words. This painting is a chronicle of his life behind bars.
When you're in prison, you get to see really what life is all about, you know. And all the things that I see, starting with the good and bad.
While Rodriguez uses the canvas to better understand the world around him, Roberts paints to escape it. There are no prison walls in his creations.
I live with it a while, and I'm not in prison. I'm enjoying a little bit of the rest of life.
The state of Oklahoma has spent nearly $10 million to build this facility to keep inmates like Demetrio and George separated from society. But through their artwork, they're able to make their mark on the outside world despite the razor wire and gun towers.
I have received letters from people out there how much they appreciate my work.
And that, Demetrio says, has given him something in very short supply inside prison: self-respect.
It has helped me in look myself different, you know, not as a loser.
Bruce Dunbar, News Center 2.
Both Demetrio and George have found a market for their paintings outside prison, and they're saving the proceeds for the day when they re-enter society. Some really nice things there. Some very good-looking things.
One of the GOP's top contenders for president in 1988 stopped by Tulsa today. We'll hear from him ahead on the Nightcast.
But up next, Gary tells us if this breezy, beautiful weather will last into the weekend.
And we'll take you to Central Florida, where the breeze has got a bit out of hand today. Tornadoes ripped through much of the area, leaving one person dead.
And Secretary of State Schultz is leaving open the possibility of a superpower summit. We'll tell you why when the Nightcast continues.
A tornado cut a 20-mile path through Central Florida today, killing one person and injuring 7 others. The twisters kicked up this morning in Sumter County, damaging 16 homes and destroying 3 others. No one was injured there. Then it veered northeast into Lake County, hitting 2 mobile home parks. A 68-year-old woman was tossed 50 yards from her mobile home and killed. And now Gary Shore was updating us and saying actually there were 3 tornadoes.
At least 3, that's right. There was even one down closer to Miami, but north of Miami a little bit, but that one did very little damage.
Well, we're having nice weather here, though.
We sure are. In fact, it's going to be really spectacular. The next 3 days would just be a wonderful time to take a little trip anywhere around our area. It's just going to be beautiful weather to be out and about and do just about anything, including even go for a swim. You might want to fill that pool. 59 degrees now, and even on Sunday with a chance of thunderstorms late in the day, we ought to make it up into the 80s, and that'll be kind of a warm and sultry day by then. So we might get some big boomers by the tail end of the weekend.
We don't care. Let's just call this splendiferous.
Make hay while the sun shines.
That's right. Heck yeah.
Ahead, testing the political waters in Tulsa.
And a fatal medical helicopter crash near Dallas. Stay with us.
A medical helicopter crashed and burned today in a rural county about 60 miles southeast of Dallas. 2 people were killed. The chopper was registered to the University of Alabama and was en route to Fort Worth.
Senator Robert Dole says there may be an arms agreement between the U.S. and Soviet sometime soon. The Kansas Republican spoke at a Tulsa press conference today. He said that both President Reagan and Soviet leader Gorbachev are facing pressures and deadlines as they search for an agreement.
I think Gorbachev, my own guess is he knows if he doesn't get an agreement pretty soon this year, there won't be an agreement in the Reagan term, second term. He'll have to wait for a new president. That may take 2 or 3 years. And it's my understanding that he's under a lot of economic and political pressure, too.
The main reason behind Senator Dole's visit was to test the political waters for a presidential bid. Though he won't officially announce his candidacy until September, Senator Dole said he was able to pick up some support on his swing through green country.
More on a missile moratorium, and Hinckley may not head home.
Just 2 of the stories in the Nightcast Digest. Secretary of State Schultz ended his trip to the Soviet Union today and says he too is encouraged about the possibility of an arms agreement. If that happens, says Schultz, Soviet leader Gorbachev may come to the U.S. for a summit with President Reagan.
The military says it's scraping for evidence against accused Sex for Secrets player Sergeant Clayton Lonetry, and that has his lawyers asking for his release. Today, Lonetry's attorneys argued that unless the military has evidence of his alleged offense, they have no right to hold him. Lonetry is accused of permitting Soviet agents to enter the U.S. Embassy in Moscow in exchange for sexual favors.
Accused Nazi Karl Linus has to look elsewhere than Panama for a home. Today, that country rejected his request to take asylum there. Panama is one of a dozen countries that have turned down his appeal. Attorney General Edwin Meese has told Linus he can try to find a country that will accept him in lieu of being deported to the Soviet Union. The Soviets have convicted Linus of war crimes and want to execute him.
John Hinckley's attempt to go home this weekend without an escort has been set back tonight. St. Elizabeth's Hospital in Washington, where Hinckley is being treated, is withdrawing its recommendation of such a trip. The reversal comes after prosecutors revealed that Hinckley had communicated last year with Florida death row killer Theodore Bundy.
Former First Daughter Amy Carter is off the legal hook tonight. She, activist Abby Hoffman, and 13 others were acquitted in a Massachusetts courtroom of charges stemming from an anti-CIA demonstration last November. Ms. Carter says, as her defense, she wanted to put the CIA on trial.
And that's the Nightcast Digest for Wednesday, April 15th, 1987.
The Drillers keep rolling along. Sorry about that.
And so do the Milwaukee Brewers. A no-hitter tonight. Sports with Al Jerkins next.
Boy, do the Milwaukee Brewers need a saliva test?
I'll tell you, break them up. Get them out of here. Ain't no, forget it. Hey, what's with the Milwaukee Brewers? Are you kidding me or what? Will it happen? It might, September 14th of this year. And that's Sports Tonight.
A lot of money again there.
Yes, yes.
Drillers with a left-handed knuckleballer.
Yeah, don't see that too often.
Not very often. Still to come on the Nightcast, the new swimsuits are out.
Does that make you happy?
Pretty much.
We'll show you one suit you wouldn't dare wear to the beach next. Thinking about buying a new swimsuit for summer? How about this one? It was shown today in Japan. The suit is made out of leather and is studded with diamonds, 104 of them, and it's valued at over $1.5 million.
Well, you'd sink in that thing. Goodness gracious.
That's it for now.
From all of us at News Center 2, good night.